Okay, let me start with a prepared script, if you will. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting virtually. The Public Works Commission is conducting this meeting on October 14th, 2020 at 4 p.m. on the Zoom platform and in accordance with the town's policy directive and guidelines issued April 1st, 2020 and amended May 7th. I ask that all Public Works Commissioners, town staff, and presenters activate their video and mute their microphones unless they have something to say or are participating in committee dialogue. For members of the public, when I open the meeting to public comment, in order to be recognized, please use the raise hand option in Zoom or the *9 by phone. If you are recognized, please state your name and address. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on the town's website. I, James Terry, hereby call this meeting to order. All commission votes will be taken by roll call. We will start with an attendance roll call of the commissioners. When I announce your name, please reply. James Terry, present. Casey Winslow. I know you're, Casey, you're muted. Casey Winslow.
Let me see if she has the ability to unmute.
Andrew Boardman.
Present.
Jeff Fasser.
Present.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is the review and approval of the minutes of September 9th, 2020. Are there any comments or revisions? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the minutes of September 9th, 2020?
I, Andrew Boardman, make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Since I was not a member at the last meeting, I don't feel it's appropriate for me to second or even vote, quite honestly. I don't see any problem with them, but I don't think.
Okay. So Casey, do you second the motion?
Casey's
Yes.
having difficulty.
She's having audio difficulty. Okay.
Yes.
Roll call vote on the minutes. James Terry, aye. Casey Winslow. That was a visual aye. Andrew Boardman.
Aye.
Jeff Fasser.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. The next item we have is sort of a review of our future calendar. And the first thing to note is that our meeting in November will not be on the second Wednesday. It'll be on the third Wednesday because the second Wednesday is Veterans Day. So people should be aware that it will be on November 18th, not the 11th. We will certainly be having our meeting by Zoom, and the agenda items will be talking about winter maintenance. So, and probably the ending of the projects that are in the cycle that'll hopefully be done before winter. Are there any questions from the committee members regarding the possible meeting calendar? Okay, seeing none. I'm going to move on.
Jim?
Yes.
Jim, may I volunteer something as far as information, as far as, the calendar is, somewhat driven by town meeting as we get towards the spring. Do you want to bring a little update? Because that may help populate
Okay.
some uncertainties at this point.
Right. So the word that I've heard so far is that town meeting is expected to be on June 13th. So it's much later than it has been in prior years. I think that's to give everybody more time since town meeting for 2020 occurred just not too long ago. So probably that means our hearings will not be in the February timeframe, but they'll be later in the year as things go on. That's about all I have for information at this time.
Yeah. And that will drive our preparation for, our various, the hearings and packages that we'll be providing to the board for review.
Okay. So the next item, I wanted to mention the fact that we have a new commissioner, Jeff Fasser, has joined us. And Jeff, if you can just give us a few words about yourself and why you're joining the Public Works Commission, that'd be great.
Thank you, Jim. So I'm very happy to be part of this. I really have tried to be part of the communities I live within. I feel as though I really enjoy and think it's important to be involved with improving the community in which you live. Very briefly, I have a degree in landscape architecture. I'm a licensed landscape architect, and about half of my career was in the public sector, working either for the city of Worcester or the Commonwealth, and doing public works projects, whether they be park improvements, streetscape improvements, natural resources, trails. I even managed a couple building rehab projects. And then the second half of my career has been in the private sector as a consultant, but again, with a focus on working for municipalities, doing similar work, streetscapes, roadways, parks, trails, etc. And some of the recent, when I listened in on the last meeting, you were talking about some of the programs the town's taking advantage of, such as Complete Streets, MVP, etc. And I do a lot of projects that are very involved with those programs and others. So I'm, one, happy to be invited to join this group, and also happy to share and help out as much as I can in any way, but especially in those programs that I'm most familiar with.
Well, great. Thank you. We're glad that you've joined the group. I've had some discussions with the town manager, and I think there's a chance that we will have our fifth member shortly. So we will be looking forward to that. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing regarding Keuka Road water main extension. Now, do we formally need to open the public hearing, Alan?
Yes,
Okay. So
Yes,
is
you
there a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, so again, we're gonna go through and have a roll call vote. Jim Terry, aye. Casey Winslow? Aye. Andrew Boardman?
Aye.
Jeff Fasser?
Aye.
So the public meeting or public hearing is started. Alan, is there some background information you can provide us?
Yeah, well, in essence, the Public Works received an application, you know, for the project that is identified as from Keuka Road LLC. It's part of the Hosmer Meadow subdivision. I believe we have on the line Hope Beckman. Hope, are you there? No?
I am.
Okay, hi, excellent, there you are, great. Thanks for muting and showing yourself. It's your opportunity to provide a little bit of background. I actually have some of the slides from the original subdivision with the water main loop shown, and then the abbreviated extension that you're requesting. So I can put that on the screen if you want to give a little background, if that's helpful.
Stella.
I'm happy to do that, or Paul Kirchner, who works for Stamsky, could do that. Either way.
Okay, can everybody see what's on the, I'm sharing the screen, it says Hosmer Meadow, definitive.
No, it disappeared.
Alan, this is Melissa. I can see it.
Yeah, you can see it, okay.
This is Anna. I
Can
see
everybody
it.
see Hosmer Meadow? Definitive?
No, it was on my screen. This is Emily Spiegel, 828 Main, and then it disappeared. So I'm trying to find it again.
Okay, Mrs. Spiegel, it is available for others. It's, I don't know how to help you with the technical, you know, challenge, but it is visible to the commission. And Hope, can you see it as well?
I can see it fine.
So if you can just describe it, and you know, or Mr. Kirchner, whichever you prefer.
So I mean, I'm happy to just give a very brief overview. So you can see the road is shown as going into the subdivision, approximately 638 feet where it ends, where the pavement would end,
Excuse me,
where your cursor just was.
whoever has the dog barking, could you please mute yourself? Thank you.
Hope, are you there?
I'm here. I think we're good.
Thank you.
So the road is shown as your cursor was just moving as going in 638 feet to the end of pavement. And if you were to continue all the way through Keuka Road and out the other side, that was the original proposed water main. We are proposing with this waiver request to shorten that water line to the end of pavement. Yeah, if you blow it, if you can blow it up just a little bit more, I don't know if you have it. Yeah, okay, so it's shown just at the edge of lot 4 there where the pavement ends. We're proposing to bring the water main to that distance and end it, thereby avoiding the isolated wetlands, which go beyond that, where the word Keuka Road is written. Yep. That would also require us to do a horizontal drilling beneath a, there's a pipe, there's a pipe there that connects to the wetlands, and we're hoping by shortening this to avoid that area altogether. We're also hoping to avoid the other side of Keuka Road, and we will not have to tie into Main Street again with another tapping sleeve. By shortening the water line, we would end up putting in a third hydrant and a gate valve by which to flush the hydrant. And I believe that's an abbreviated version of what we're intending
Sure.
to do.
And I think it's important to understand, just for the commission, generally when water mains are extended in concert with a subdivision, there is a formal vetting of that and public vetting during the subdivision review process. And when comments went in from Public Works, we give a lot of input on the design and configuration of the water system, the water main here. And there's a standard where if a loop can be created, it's something which generally is advantageous. And at the time this subdivision was going through a couple different iterations, Hope, how many, there was a significant density or more density of residents as part of this, correct?
Are you referring to the initial PRD?
Yeah, exactly.
We had initially proposed 11 dwelling units,
Yeah, so
smaller.
we had identified the need for a loop at the time without a lot of focus on the details, just to comport with our standard policy. When we learned that subdivision had been approved and there was only 4 units, we also learned about the potential wetland impacts in this area over here, and some concerns from people who were would have been adversely impacted by having the construction along that section of Keuka Road and across driveways and that sort of thing. We volunteered that this sort of density, we didn't see a reason why this might not, merit a reconsideration to do just an abbreviated extension. So we took, this has been approved, to be clear to everybody kind of listening in the commission. They have, by right, the ability to install this main as shown. What we're trying to do is work with the applicant and the abutters, and we've also reached out to the NRC and the planning department to get concurrence that if the water main were to, this is the proposed plan that the Public Works Commission is being asked to approve. Because it's not a loop and because it's different than what was approved through the subdivision review process, we determined it needed to get another public vetting, an opportunity for Public Works to weigh in. And in essence, this is the water main plan that is presently before the commission for approval. And as Hope had sort of indicated, the main comes up and terminates here with a hydrant that allows for flushing of the main, and that's something we do routinely, when there's what we call a dead end pipe. But given it's really only affecting 4 new lots, we felt that the abbreviated extension was something that was not unusual and certainly merited consideration given the support from the applicant as well as others that we've heard from. So that's basically the gist of why Hope is before the commission today.
Just to be clear, I know this is Emily Spiegel. I can see the map now. Is the shaded area you're proposing to change that or extend that? I'm not quite sure I understand.
You're talking about this area?
Yes.
I can answer that. My name is Paul Kirchner from Stamp Scan McNary. We did this plan. The shaded area actually looks like it's disappeared, but that's really just left over from the subdivision plan. That's just a meadow area. It is really not relevant to the proposed water main.
So
What I understood the previous gentleman to say is you're not, I'm trying to understand if the western side of Keuka Road, which right now doesn't go through to the other part, you're not planning to put new sewers through that? You're just going to go through the subdivision that already was approved with?
That is correct. The proposal
That's
is
a
to,
question.
sorry. The proposal is to terminate the water main at the end of the proposed pavement, right where Alan is showing his cursor right now. And the subdivision approval included the installation of approval of the installation of the water main through that area all the way to the other side of Keuka Road. This application is to allow construction to terminate at the essentially at the edge of the proposed pavement. So this is the approved plan that Alan is showing right now, shows the water main going through to the other side of Keuka Road, the west side. The plan that we are hoping to gain approval for today is this plan, and the water main would end approximately at the end of the proposed pavement.
If I could just add to that. The shaded gray area is a meadow area. That's meadow grass.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. I just want to verify with Alan that by having the hydrant at the end of the construction area, you are comfortable that the water quality will be sufficient, will be appropriate for all of the new lots?
Yes, loops are generally required to increase fire flow, allow for some improved water quality where you can get flow through continuous, and sometimes there's system benefits to create linkage to areas that provide increased reliability of service for a larger area. The benefits any loop that this created was pretty marginal at best. We did talk with the fire department as well, to get their concurrence. So we're comfortable with this design is not unusual in Concord for this size development.
Okay, great. Are there other comments or questions from commissioners?
Yeah, Jim, this is Jeff. I have one question, probably more for Alan. If I am reading the prior approvals, this is going to be a private way, is that correct?
Yes, the way is ultimately will become a private way. When we first reviewed this, we were thinking the water main would also remain private. But upon kind of closer review, what we realized is if it was a PRD, which meant it would all be one property, we would keep it as a private utility. And we'd have an agreement for maintenance and care. We could have access, but it would be privately owned and controlled. Given it's a subdivision, and now we're going to have multiple ownership along the edge, even on a private way, we will assume ownership. Once we have easement in place, and we're making a recommendation that that be included in the final, as-built, when they, this has actually been installed because it's in accordance with the original approved design. But I think for constructability, it made sense to install this portion earlier. But given conform with what was already approved, we had no problem. The question is, do they need to extend or leave it as is at this point? If the commission were to accept this proposal, they could leave it as is. And if it was denied, they would then be required to extend it. So we will end up with easement and ownership of the main itself, completion, once it's been accepted.
Thank you. You anticipated my follow-up question, and that was if it is private, who owns the water line, and it'll be the town. Thank you.
And did this need additional approval from the NRC? I remember reading that. I didn't know if this was where the final, or if it's just, I'm just curious of how the order works.
It's my understanding that there was a notice of intent that went with the original subdivision, I believe, through the NRC. They were supportive of the abbreviated version. I think got approval from, they reached out to DEP. I think there was a superseding order of conditions that was existed, and DEP affirmed that they preferred this plan as well. So, and then the town planner also provided a letter of support for the abbreviated main extension.
It appeared to me that the MEP or DEP does need to sign off on it, but if they've already mentioned that they're in favor of it, it should not take too long. Are there other questions or comments from commissioners? Are there questions from others who are on the call today?
Well,
Hi,
if I may, this is Anna Trout. I just want to state for the record that proper notice has been received for the abutters. Thank you.
Okay.
This is Jack Steiner. I had my hand raised, but you can take that down if you want. I live at 760 Main, and I just want to make sure that since the area looks like the hydrant would be dumping into is a flood area, even as dry as the weather had been before the last couple of days, and this is wetlands, albeit not protected wetlands. What are specific analyses that have been done to make sure that this will be safe for the surrounding properties, given that there will already be a lot of water in that area, with the idea that this would be used to dump excess water,
So,
and also impact on wildlife would be useful.
I can explain. So in essence, there are water mains all over town with hydrants at least every 300 feet or so. And basically what we'll do for regular routine maintenance is we have a goal of going to dead ends and miscellaneous hydrants around town once every at least a couple of years. But that's really the kind of maintenance, frequency we're talking about. And a hydrant may be flushed for this length of a pipe, maybe 10, 15 minutes. So it's really fairly negligible as far as the impact. And our crews are routinely aware of how to manage and diffuse the flow from a hydrant so it doesn't scour and cause erosion. It's a very normal kind of operation for us.
Okay, so it's not a problem to be installing it in wetlands?
It's been installed according to, you see, this hydrant already exists. It's all part of the original water main. It was kind of, if I go up.
Okay, so the pipe and everything is already in place?
Yes, yes.
I see, okay. Okay.
Thank you. Are there other questions?
Can I offer one more issue on the environmental impact? I do know that both NRC and the town planner were interested in ensuring that some of the work that had been done in anticipation of extending the main through the entire loop had been, there'd been some impact. I think there was some environmental controls put in and some excavation, and they requested, and I think it's reasonable to include a provision that that area be restored is part of this approval. And I think the commission does have that authority to have the restoration. It's fairly de minimis, but it's an important part of just, if they continue the extension, there won't be, there'll be restoration after the fact. But because it's now limited to this area, I don't know, do you know, is this the area that they're, of interest, where it says the proposed meadow area, or can you speak to that?
Yeah, that's correct. That's a proposed meadow area, and it says right here. So this is like a wetlands grass mixture that's going to go in there, and after the paved area.
Okay. So they requested the commission consider that as part of their approval.
Okay, great. Hearing no other comments, is there?
There is one more, if
Well,
I
actually-
may interrupt. Hello?
Okay,
Can you hear me?
continue. Yes,
Yes, this is Miss Loomer, Keuka Road. Can Mr. Cathcart or Ms. Beckman clarify for me that all of the preparations for the continuous loop, the drainage preparations and the silt barriers west of the meadow will be taken down and that area restored? Is that how I understand this aspect of the proposal?
The plan is to remove all of the silt fencing and so forth that was going in to provide for the extension beyond where it's presently shown on this map.
I would heartily support that. But I have an additional question. I understand that there is a preliminary plan for a 5th unit to be built just abutting the meadow area. Will this abbreviated main support that 5th unit?
They are entitled to a stub for that water main, which is included in the plan to be left in the center of the road where the main is shown.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, we have nothing to do with the 5th house. That's,
Let me
as
just
far
be
as I know,
clear.
it's not yet
Yeah.
permitted.
So to be clear, we're approving the main extension to provide the appropriate frontage for the 4 units shown on this plan. If any additional demands or requests, to access the main, it'll have to go through the water sewer division. We have the authority to review and approve new connections. The primary interest, and I think the question related to frontage, and where I don't know where the property lines are, definitively, it's hard to say whether that additional buildable lot, if it were to be, has frontage or not. I just don't know because it's not part of this plan and we're not in a position to review that. But if this is a property line, the water main would have frontage. If this were a property line, we would still say that if the main is here, you'd have enough to do a service connection without requiring an extension. But other than that, I don't have any specifics. If the lot we're talking about was over here, that would be a different story. It would not have frontage.
Over where? I'm sorry, I can't see.
I'm sorry, but I just want to be clear that the authority would be through the water sewer division to determine if the lot has frontage. I'm not looking at property specific. That's sort of it's apparently hypothetical at this point. We don't have any buildable lot that's on our agenda today.
Okay. More to follow.
Thank you.
This is Jack Steiner again. I'd like to find out about the time frame and impact to those of us on Main Street whose water would presumably be shut off, and so the time frame for shut off and for the actual construction.
Construction is complete to this point.
Sorry.
If they had to do the full extension loop, would there be an impact?
Were you able to hear me okay?
Yes, so what I heard is, will there be impact on water shut off on Main Street as part of this approval? And the answer would be no. It's already been, the main is installed to this point. There might be a shut off if they continued and had to create the loop according to the original subdivision plan, but not at this point. There will be no impact on your water at this point.
This assembly's
and just to follow up, so that, oh, go ahead, Emma.
Go ahead and finish, and then I'll ask my question.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Jack, you have cut out completely. It's really, we're not catching enough.
I missed part of your response. I apologize if you said this already, but in terms of actual construction taking place on Main Street, to do the final hookup, will that be a protracted period, or will that be something that happens in a day or less?
Hopefully you can hear.
Okay,
the connection
apologies.
is very bad, but if you can hear, this connection to the main
Is this
has
any
already been
better?
completed. Hello? Yeah. Well, can everybody hear me? He's asking if
was
this.
trying to ask if the actual hookup will take place in less than a day, or if it'll be a protracted period to do that last piece of hooking up. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I did get that now.
Okay, all right. I'm going to stop sharing the screen so we can see. There we go.
So, Alan, I had another question. This is Emily Spiegel. I understand that fifth lot or fifth possible proposed development on Keuka Road on the part on the west that isn't hooked up is not part of Hope Beckman's 4-unit process. But will neighbors and abutters on Main Street be informed if that proposal for the fifth unit comes forth? Because it could have an impact on us.
So the question becomes, they will go through a usual review through the planning department. The Water and Public Works only authority for that, any new lot created would be if they're looking for water or wastewater service, and there is no wastewater, municipal wastewater provide. And we've just discussed as far as if they have frontage to the main, and again, we're talking hypothetical because I don't know where the property lines are. If they have frontage, then they do have the right to connect to provide a water service I can say, you know, they also other alternatives of putting wells in and things like that, you know, depending on where they are. So the review from a planning process would not be with the public works, it would be through the town planning department. They would have in the building department. That's where they'd be reviewing whether it's a buildable lot or not.
That would include whatever wetlands could be affected by that new property, right?
Everything. It would also, there'd be consideration of a Title V system for wastewater service. You know, just go the usual review process through town to create a lot, a new buildable lot. But it wouldn't be through Public Works. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I think it does.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you, everybody, for your questions and comments. Is there a motion from the board to close the public hearing?
I so move, Andrew Boardman.
Thank you. Is there a second? Casey is indicating yes. Okay, so all those in favor of closing the public hearing? James Terry, yes. Andrew Boardman,
Yes.
Jeff Fasser,
Yes.
Casey Winslow. She's nodded yes, virtually, okay. Is there a motion that someone would like to make regarding this? Andrew?
I have a motion. Andrew Boardman makes the motion to approve the application for the water main extension as detailed on the site development plan for Keuka Road LLC dated November 16, 2017 and revised August 31st, 2020 in accordance with supporting documentation provided with the following special conditions. The water main shall be accepted, put into service, and shall become property of the town after successfully passing pressure and disinfection tests, submission and acceptance by the town engineer and water superintendent of the as-built plan, including certified water main easement. Furthermore, the applicant shall submit a site restoration plan to the NRC director and the town planner to mitigate site work impacts that have already been incurred in an area outside this limit of work, which shall be performed in anticipation of installing a full water main, which was performed in anticipation of installing the full water main loop.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, in that case, a roll call vote. James Terry, aye. Andrew Boardman,
Aye.
Jeff Fasser,
Aye.
Casey Winslow. She's indicated aye. That motion has been approved. Thank you all for joining us for this public hearing. Alan, I think the next topic on our agenda is traffic management coordination, and you were going to give us an update as to what's been happening recently.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to go, first of all, there's been a lot of activity with
Excuse me, Alan, I just want to say thank you. I was trying to unmute. This is Hope. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So, yeah, we thought it was important. There's a lot of activity and interest recently in the fact that some of the externalities of COVID have been an increased awareness and interest in right-of-way, not just for the regular traffic, but also for pedestrians, cyclists, and that sort of thing. And working in concert with the Concord Public Schools, the town manager's office, the Concord Police Department, we've been responding to lots of inquiries and interests that have been a little bit of a challenge in that some of these requests are for crosswalks that have historically may have been contemplated but never realized for a variety of reasons. But we also have a brand new, a fairly new engineering group where our most seasoned engineer right now has got 1.5 years experience in Concord. With that said, we're fortunate to have a lot of good engineers with lots of experience. So we're getting the benefit of them sort of dusting off plans and looking at sort of needs in a fresh way. But I want to have Steve Dukran, who's a town engineer. Are you showing? Oh, there he is. Okay, great. Walk you through some of the more recent challenges and potential opportunities, but I'm going to see if I can share the screen so he can walk you through some of, let's see if I bring this up, do you see a plan entitled Location Plan for Requested Crosswalks? Okay, great. Steve Dukran, do you want to kind of walk us through this update for the commission?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, commissioners. I don't want to repeat too much of what Alan just said, but again, the purpose here is to make you aware of the unusual number of recent requests we have for crosswalks in particular, but also for sidewalks, traffic calming, and other related traffic issues. As everyone is aware, there's a lot more foot and bicycle traffic as a result of the COVID-19 situation. I'm going to preface so that people don't get a wrong idea that we're not against getting these requests. In fact, we believe these are real issues and real needs. And often we find that they fall within the overall goal of making the town more walkable and more bikeable. However, like Alan was saying, the public expectations have to be realistic with regards to us trying to balance our community needs and interests with our available resources. And we should also make note that these resources are also being maxed out as a result of the same reason, same issues, COVID-19. And as we enter into our budget preparation for next year, we are not optimistic that we will be in a better position. So we really want everyone to be aware that, yes, we recognize that these are real needs, but having to address them the way we normally would will not be achieved at this point in time. So this map here shows 4 crosswalks that came up to our attention more recently. The cursor shows the one on Powder Mill Road. It's a path that kids cross to get to the school parking lot. And residents are asking that a crosswalk be placed there. The next one, the school there is that blue dot. So the path is right there on Powder Mill near the school. The other location is Sudbury Road, and later on I'll go into a little bit more detail as to that one, because that has been getting a lot of attention recently. And we move over to the Alcott School. There are 2 related requests. The first one is on Haywood Street, where kids bike through the Haywood Meadow and want to get over to Alcott. So we'll look at that and show you in a photo exactly what we're talking about. And then the fourth one is a crosswalk being requested where Hawthorne comes into the newly reconstructed Cambridge Turnpike. If we look at the photographs, next slide. The first one, Haywood Street. You can see the path coming out of Haywood Meadow. So that intersection there, Haywood and Walden, is pretty busy, and there are sightline issues. So getting the kids safely across is important. We deal with a number of vehicles at any point in time. It's a well-traveled road, and so this needs a lot of attention in order to get something that's safe. The next photo shows Hawthorne coming into Cambridge Turnpike. The sidewalk is across the street from Hawthorne. Residents are saying that kids have to cross the street to get down to Alcott, and there isn't a crosswalk. There's history behind most of these, before Cambridge Turnpike was constructed, the sidewalk was on the side with Hawthorne. So now, it makes it difficult for them. So this one, we have to examine it closely to make sure that we can get a crosswalk across Cambridge Turnpike, especially when it's open. We see over 10,000 vehicles a day, and you want to make sure that crosswalk is safe. The next photograph highlights the path, near Willard School. Kids come down this path and want to get over to the school. So this one is challenging. If you look at a path and you look at across both sides of the street, how do you get a crosswalk that's safe? So it will take some thinking, some planning, and some significant design to get us going. And the last photograph shows the one that we've been talking about a lot recently. This is at on Sudbury Road at the intersection of 7 Star, Garfield Road, and Oxbow Road. If you can see that corner, cars coming to the north from Sudbury side, you don't have enough side distance for a pedestrian to cross because the cars are going at a speed that's normally higher than the posted speed limit. Posted speed limit is 30 miles an hour. We have found that cars are traveling on average at 40 miles an hour. So that embankment there to the right side of the street, that does obstruct the sight line, making the crossing unsafe. I'll go into a little bit more detail on that later on, but I want to mention, the other needs regarding traffic calming and signs. We see requests for signs, as well as the sidewalks, the recent request for speed changes on certain streets. Those are traditionally have been dealt with our internal group called the Traffic Management Group. That's been in place for a while, and they take on these issues. And so there's a process, and their list is growing as they try to deal with these things. The minor ones are disposed of easily, like request for a sign, sometimes that's easily done, they take care of that. But request for a crosswalk or traffic calming is pretty significant, and we have to go by the policies and the regulations that are in place, and often we get very involved. So as Alan mentioned, the newly formed Transportation Advisory Group that represents quite a cross-section of the town government, not just us in Public Works, myself, the town engineer, and the Superintendent of Highway and Grounds. We are members of this committee, but we also have planning and land management, police, council of aging, and even citizen representatives who can bring expertise to this, to the charge of this group. The idea here is to take on these bigger issues. So we've just started. We just had our second meeting, and the hope is we will deal with these bigger ones, and which could lead to having to find capital funding. And going back to what I said earlier about resources becoming less and less, we'll have to find ways of funding these projects. And we'll also continue to have the traffic management group. We will continue to serve as a working group supporting the efforts of the Transportation Advisory Committee. So let us just, one more thing I want to add. Currently we are considering outsourcing some of this work to a consulting firm so that we can get some outside expertise in these, to deal with these important issues, to evaluate them and to make recommendations. And the firm that we're looking at does have that kind of expertise and experience. They're currently working for the neighboring town of Lincoln on similar matters. So there's hope there to advance some of these things in the right way. So let's talk about this, what we have in front of us. This intersection on Sudbury Road. We want to show you that there's a significant amount of effort to come up with a design to make this safer. I mentioned the high speed of travel and the obstruction posed by that embankment around the corner. And so we've gone through and come up with a plan that tries to improve that side distance by this corner here in the northwest corner on near 7 Star. You can see where we are bumping out that corner to reduce that sweep and putting the pedestrian closer to the travel lane. And then on the opposite side, the east side of the street, there's some widening occurring, which will push the vehicle over. So by doing so now, you have a longer side distance between the vehicle and the pedestrian, making that connection and making it safer. We'll enhance the crosswalk with those rapid flashing beacons. Those are known to make crosswalks safer because cars can see this flashing light from quite a distance. They're activated by a pedestrian. When the pedestrian is present, they're then actuated by pressing a button. So it's very involved, very, I'd say very costly, but the costs are considerable. This project was one of the 3 projects that we have obtained a grant for, and Complete Streets grant. The funds here were only $20,000, so the town will have to make up the rest. Our hope is to get this done, this design completed and bidding documents ready for spring construction. I think that's about what I wanted to mention regarding all of these issues that are before us.
Thank you, Steve. That was valuable. I can see, Alan, that there are a considerable number of requests, and as we know from town meeting, Public Works is limited funds at this time. We can just hope that things will get back on a regular trail, and maybe resources will be available. But I think it's important that the citizens be aware of the fact that engineers are working on these projects to the extent that we can, and the construction of them may be delayed or having to prioritize which ones are the ones that we think we can do the best with the resources that we have. I like the fact that you found an outside consultant to assist in evaluating some of the other sites, and the fact that the person has been used in Lincoln means that he does know at least the western suburbs of Massachusetts, of Boston. Are there other questions or comments from the board members?
Yeah, I just had a question regarding the siting of crosswalks and stuff near Willard School. I know that the long-term plan for the middle school is one combined location at Sanborn, and that it's unclear what the site at Willard is going to be used for 5-10 years out. Is there a utility, if these are complicated engineering things, in actually spending money there right now, if it's not as simple as just putting in a sign or something like that? I mean, you look at that crossing where they're talking about from the path to the backs of those fields. There's no, once there's not a school there, spending $40,000-$50,000 on a, between man hours and actual construction doesn't make a lot of sense. And I just don't know where that's entering into your process.
Well, remember, Willard is an elementary school, so I think it's.
I'm thinking of
Peabody would be the one.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Surplus.
I looked at a map and then got
But
confused.
the question's a great question, which is why planning is involved with these discussions. It's not just a public works issue, as Steve mentioned. Aaron Mcclosk, highway grounds deal with clearing brush and keeping, site distance issues, in check, replacing signage when it's kind of worn or sort of, bent over, covered with vegetation. we do a lot of things within Public Works. Engineers look at the design and, you know, the investments for capital improvements, as well as the safety, working with the police department. But the, you know, what we call the traffic management group are staff that coordinate internally to ensure they're not responding to the same inquiry from 2 or 3 different points of contact in town. You could be talking to the police, you could talk to highway, they could be talking to engineering, planning. So the TMG is to coordinate so I don't step on each other, but do the things that we can and should do without a lot of discussion. The traffic advisory committee under the town manager's auspices is broader. And those are where we bring these issues that may involve tens of thousands of dollars or investment. And how does it fit into the town's, you know, vision for pedestrians, cyclists, all that sort of thing. So that's why it's the value of this transportation advisory committee, but you're dead on as far as investments need to be made wisely. And we're very sensitive, not prioritizing based on, you know, where's the loudest voice, but it's where's the greatest need. And, you know, we're serving the entire, you know, community. And so we have to look at all of the variables. I can tell you this crosswalk has some benefit on Sudbury Road of connectivity of the Canantum area over potentially towards the rail trail and that sort of thing. So there's you know, some benefits beyond just the school, but the school is obviously an important one. But that's how we look at all of these. Our challenge is telling people that, yes, it's important, but we also have to put it on balance with other asks that are, you know, of equal interest, and depending on your neighborhood, that may color your interest as far as what we're doing and how quickly.
I think I conflated, thank you, Jim, for putting me in the right spot. I think I conflated it with the traffic calming discussion we'd had maybe last year related to Indian Pipe. And there was concern that there's an existing crosswalk that would need significant reworking in order to make that safer. And that's where I got confused, but thank you. That was a helpful discussion.
Great. Are there other questions or comments on this topic?
Yeah, I have a question. Obviously, I'm getting up to
Can you
speed
guys
on a
hear me?
number-
Yes, Casey, we can hear you.
Oh, finally. Sorry about that. So I was just wondering about the Cambridge Turnpike one. That was discussed early on when we were just, you know, deciding, presenting to the neighbors and so on. That was a request that they had put in pretty early on. I wondered if there was any commitments made way back when on that.
Alan or Steve?
Steve Duprin. Yeah, so we are aware that of that request. We're aware also that it was shown on a preliminary plan. However, when the final plans were prepared and put out to bid, it disappeared. And so upon completion of the Cambridge Turnpike, neighbors asked us about where did this crosswalk go? So we went back to the design engineering firm, CMA Engineers, because as Alan mentioned, most of us are new to the town as well as new to the project, and we don't have the history. And the consultant said that you know, they discussed it with previous staff, and they decided that the crosswalk, putting back a crosswalk there to cross the busy Cambridge Turnpike wasn't a safe thing to do. So we yet don't have the exact history. We wish we can find that in writing, but it's our intention to really revisit it. You know, Alan and I believe that a crosswalk is appropriate, and we have to find a safe way of getting it in. So we are going to spend the time and effort to figure out how to get that in.
Thank you.
Jeff, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, again, I'm getting up to speed on things, and I'm glad that you've got some complete streets money for the Sudbury crossing. I'm just curious how the complete street plan ties into all these different crossings that Stephen talked about. Were they prioritized in the plan? Were they even in the plan at all? And how will this newly formed TAC use the complete street plan so we're not reevaluating things that have already been evaluated?
Let me try and handle the complete streets. So when they came up with a list of priorities, obviously that was the early part of the grant process. There were something like 52 projects on the list, and they ranged from very large projects to small projects. And like a simple crosswalk is a small project. Obviously, the one on Sudbury Road is a little bit more involved. That crosswalk actually was low on the list, but according to the consulting firm that assisted the town in the final list that went with the grant application, there's an overwhelming support, overwhelming public participation that pushed for this crosswalk. And the fact that at the time they thought that the crosswalk was going to be costing only $20,000, they were able to get that into the maximum. The maximum that you can get with a complete streets grant is $400,000. The grant also has two large projects, the Hubbard street improvements, as well as a part of Commonwealth Ave, where we're going to be doing some improvements as well. Those two projects are large, and because of the kind of support they got, they slipped in the Sudbury Road, which now is, it's the focus of our attention because of the need that people are calling for, as well as, you must be aware of a petition that went to the select board, and last night there was a hearing on it, and we attended that meeting and presented as well. So anyway, that's how that got in there. I don't know if all these crosswalks are part of the complete streets study that was done. I wasn't on at the time. I can go back and see if it addressed these other crosswalks. But you think the idea of having the Transportation Advisory Committee examine those projects as we make decisions at that level, I think that's a good idea, and I think we'll raise that. I'm being a member, I can certainly bring that to the other members.
Yeah, well, I think the Transportation Advisory Committee is going to have lots of things to think about, and certainly having you as one of the members of that is going to help in evaluation and prioritization of the things that we're going to have to figure out which ones we can afford to do and which ones we need to do quickly. Alan, I think the next thing is the director's update.
Okay, very good. Let me go to the visuals here. I'll try to share the screen once again. We do multiple screens, always make it interesting. Let's see. All right, do we see? Share. All right, what do we see now? Is it?
You're good, Alan. You've got the director's report up.
All right, beautiful. We will start as Jeff, for you, as far as kind of a new member, this is a good opportunity for the senior staff to present some of the key projects, initiatives. I'd like to have them present because they're the subject matter experts, and if you have detailed questions, they're available to answer them. And also just so they get to know the commission, and the commission gets to know them, because it's an important part of how we operate. So with that said, we'll have Melissa Simoncini come to, if you can show yourself and kick off the presentation with the solid waste and recycling initiatives you've been involved with.
All right, thank you, Alan. Thanks to all the commissioners for being here on this gorgeous afternoon. Can everybody hear me fine? Okay, great. I have 2 computers going and a phone, so we're making do. So we've had a busy couple months with our collection and recycling events that we've been had happening. On September 17th, we hosted a household hazardous waste collection here in Concord. It's something that happens twice every year, or once every other year. I apologize. And then we have 8 other opportunities for residents to attend at the Minuteman Hazardous Waste Facility in Lexington as part of their curbside subscription. And then we also hosted our business recycling event on September 24th. That's a Friday. This year we actually opened it up. We typically only saw, maybe a couple dozen businesses. So this year, in order to provide an opportunity for residents to properly dispose of more items, we had it open for businesses from 8 to 10, and then residents from 10 to noon. And we got close to 60 people who came to shred and or get rid of electronic waste. Both these events and some of the smaller events that we've been holding have actually been almost like boot camp for drop-off day, which will be held this weekend on campus here. And this is just a brief map of a little bit of what drop-off day tends to look like. This year we're not hosting swap because there was really no good way to do it and ensure proper social distancing. Other than not having swap, a couple differences are reusable building goods won't be there. They're renovating their facility, but they'll be back in the spring. More Than Words isn't there, so we won't be able to take books or CDs or VHS tapes, but any books can be donated to the library that are in good usable condition. And then we have one addition. The Rotary Club is collecting clean plastic bags, and they're actually going to be made into Trex picnic tables. So just before I started speaking, we just got our 350th sign up for this weekend's event. We have a max of 440 people that we were able to accept. That's 20 people every 15 minutes. Everybody's signed up online. There has been a few challenges, but we're working through it, getting people paid, getting people signed up. So we're close to 80% capacity, with big draws being your typical electronics, shredding, scrap metal, oversized waste, and styrofoam. Just a big, and for styrofoam, typically we had a lot of Boy Scouts who stomped and broke down styrofoam and crushed it up into bags, but due to social distancing and just trying not to touch too much stuff, people paid for their bags online and then came to Public Works to pick up their bags. So they'll just bring their bags right to the event, and then we'll pack them away. So there'll be minimal handling in that respect. The other interesting thing surrounding drop-off day is that we are collecting bikes in a partnership with the Bike Connector based out of Lowell. And because we have limited staff, we've partnered with Bike Connector to actually help us fix up the bikes this year. So it won't be CPW and other staff helping. It'll be the community group themselves, and we'll be having a bike giveaway event on October 23rd in the afternoon in partnerships with the Safe Routes to School program. So it's been a busy month, but help me pray for relatively good weather on Saturday. The event happens rain or shine, but at this point in time, we're looking about, it's saying 90% chance of rain in the morning, but only a quarter of an inch of rain. So I'm guessing pretty just dreary, drizzly, and cold. So it should be a good event. Hopefully I'll see some of you there. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thanks, Melissa. And I think the one thing I'd add to that is just the coordination through, the website, having assigned times for drop-off is, is all new. If you've been to some of these events, It's a bit circus-like. I think some people like that, but I think part of the circus is the swap-off component of finding, treasures from someone else's, garage or basement. That will not be happening. So, we're hoping it can be streamlined, social distancing, and people can get rid of materials that they've been holding on to for a while. So it's looking forward to.
Great. Yeah, good point. And, it's a big effort for, the whole CPW community. So everybody's been fantastic and helpful, and Reuse It, the recycling committee here in town, they have been fantastic leading me through all of this. None of it would be able to happen without their help and the rest of CPW's help. So thanks to all.
Great. Thanks, Melissa. So we'll move on to engineering. Steve Duker, do you want to pop back on and kind of walk us through some of the other projects you've been involved with?
Yes, so what we're looking at here is this path that runs down near the Emerson house, and it connects to the sidewalk, the new sidewalk on Cambridge Turnpike. And just so that you're aware that this was a part of a permit requirement regarding historic commitments that the project had to make. At the end of this asphalt piece, it goes into pea stone right there by the fountain. And it's a replica of something of the past. The reason why we wanted to show this is that this project is part of the phase 1 contract, and that all got completed. And, we just have a couple of issues that we have to address before the end of the year. We have further down, we have the farm stand that's going to be paved. Hopefully by the beginning of November, when the activity there is slowed down. And there are a couple of puddle issues that you might see some work being done, a driveway to be fixed, and so on. But for the most part, the phase 1 is 100% done, as well as the bridge has been opened and open to travel, and it's working well. What we're showing here is the very end of the project. This is at the Crosby Pond Culverts, where we're putting in 2 large culverts to cross the Millbrook. And so what the photo shows is some repair work being done with the wing walls at the culverts. Talked a little bit more about them the last time. There's been settlement at each of the wing walls, and the contractors started his repairs to stabilize his wing walls. These culverts actually are showing pieces of concrete being poured out from the bases and steel piles being driven through to tie these wing walls into the ground more firmly. And this has been done to just these 2 wing walls. The other wing walls, they're using some tension rods to tie them together to pull them in place and then to keep them stable. This work will all be done regarding the wing wall repairs by the end of the month. And as you can tell, it's repair work. The town's position is that this costs are all going to be done by the contractor. We are not sure that the contractor has accepted that position, but they have moved forward to get this work done. Upon completion of this work at the end of October, they're going to be going back onto the road work. There's some duct bank to complete, some drainage work to get done before the road is paved. The paving date is set for around the 6th through the 9th of November, that window. Then there's some sidewalk to be done right after, as well as guardrail. The road will not be open until the guardrail is done. The date for the guardrail is now set at November 16th, but everything is weather dependent. Our hope is to have this road open to traffic by Thanksgiving. Again, weather dependent. So yeah, if you have any questions about that, we could ask them afterwards. This is showing the movie night at Verrill Farms, the engineering division, helped in laying out the parking and the access to the farm side, as well as the location of the movie screen. We did the same for the high school, the Concord College High School, and they had a couple of nights of successful showings. The movie shown here was Little Woman, I believe, but it went well. This here is a shot of the Damon Mill Bridge. Reason why we're showing this is that National Grid did a main replacement of their natural gas line, and that work's done, and they've shut down for the winter on this project. They will come back in the spring and restore those patches properly. So that's what we have to show for our report, but our full report is included in the packet regarding the other activities we have been involved in.
Thanks, Steve. Did any of the commission members have questions for Steve on any of those? Sorry, I didn't ask in time for Melissa, but any questions just for we'll keep going. Aaron Mcclosk will talk about the highway grounds activities. Aaron, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone. My name is Aaron Mcclosk. I'm the Highway and Grounds Superintendent for Concord Public Works. Month of September was a very productive month for the division. A detailed list of their activities are listed in the director's report. But some of the highlights, a couple photos of a few highlights, a lot of right-of-way work took place, whether it's pothole paving. This actually shows a section of sidewalk that was reconstructed on Main Street, actually just down the street from the Keuka Road development. Concerns of some narrowing sidewalk due to overgrown brush and deterioration in the asphalt. So we cut back the brush line, repaved the sidewalk, and this is the crew repaving the apron of the driveway right here. Number of activities similar to this would take place throughout town, listed in the report. This is a picture of the Doug White athletic fields. It's a some don't realize that the Doug White fields are actually town property, and Concord Public Works Highway and Grounds Division maintains those two athletic turf fields up at that property. These lines shown here represent, we got requests from the athletic department to install some social distancing guides for the student athletics activities that were taking place up there. So we went up, took some temporary marking paint, crews marked that out. We do also do a number of other maintenance activities. We completed the GMAX testing, which is actually testing of the density of the compacted crumb rubber material in the turf. That testing takes place every year to determine that the field is still safe for contact sports and activities. That took place in this month of September. We also have scheduled basically a turf cleaning scheduled for the month of October with another contractor. So we'll be up there completing those activities before the winter time. It's basically a cleaning and decompaction of the crumb rubber and identifying any maintenance that might need to take place later in the springtime. We have a very active tree planting program within the division. Last year, the town received a $150,000 municipal vulnerability preparedness grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. A big chunk of that grant was for tree planting initiatives and programs. We currently have a right-of-way tree planting program as well as a setback tree planting program here in the division that we coordinate. It's a mix of both Concord Public Works labor force as well as a contracted service provider. Right now, Davie Resource Group Incorporated holds that contract, and we work closely with them every season to plant a number of trees. We do some outreach to residents. We also have residents that contact us directly requesting a right-of-way tree planted in front of their property or setback tree planted on their property. We took delivery of these trees and are actually in the process of planting them this week. 50 new right-of-way trees will be planted by the end of the week. So we're pretty excited about that. Our goal is to have 150 trees planted as part of that MVP tree planting program. The last round took place in the springtime. We've got 30 trees in the ground, and we will finish it off in the spring of 2021. We're kind of limited due to season of when to plant trees when it's a kind of mild weather. Obviously, we have a significant drought this summer, so we kind of delayed as much as we could. That's where we're we feel the weather's mild enough and the climate's appropriate to plant them in the ground this month and this week. So excited about that. We are also following kind of the sustainability initiatives of the town of Concord. I think on the town meeting warrant article, there was a proposed article, I think, that got pulled out about looking at the electrification of the fleet in the town. So we are, we take that pretty seriously. Within our division, we're looking at, this is a photo of a fully electric ride-on zero-turn mower that we demoed last week. We're looking to purchase one of these for our spring mowing season. We have already purchased you can go to the next slide. We've purchased a number of these. Steel manufacturers, kind of a commercial grade weed whips, as well as blowers and push mowers. We've purchased a number of these over the last few months in Public Works. We use them in the cemetery division as well as the park and tree division. We find them to be a very good machine, very good piece of equipment, and we look to kind of further deploy these as we kind of move on to replace out old gas-powered two-stroke line trimmers and blowers and incorporate more and more of the electric equipment. With technology advances every year, the equipment gets better every year. A few years ago, it probably wasn't feasible. Now we're at the point where we can start integrating them to be used within our daily activities. So we're excited to bring those on board. We are also, this is a photo of the park and tree shop. We are working closely with Melissa Simoncini on kind of environmental compliance and regulatory compliance. We purchased a number of these flammable fuel containers to replace some of the old ones that are in our shop. So this is just a picture of one of those that we procured this past month. Obviously, we're always doing tree work. I think a lot of people saw it. It was probably right outside your front door last week during the storm we had on Wednesday evening. But this is a crew cleaning up here in the cemetery earlier this month. And I'll have some further details for next month's report on the photos and the activity. But we did, I'd say last week, we responded to over 60 tree down calls. That's just public shade trees or private trees that fell in the right of way. That doesn't include any trees that fell on private property. Crews worked all through the night, Wednesday night, all day, Thursday into Thursday night. At one point, we had close to 30 pieces of equipment rolling on the streets to respond. A mix of in-house CPW, saw and shipping crews. We had a bucket crew of our own. We brought in multiple contracted logging crews and shipping crews, as well as a crane crew, and worked closely with CMLP, following them along as they de-energized and made the area safe for us to work closely with their crews hand in hand. At the end of last week, over the weekend, we're still doing cleanup right now. So I'm sure you've probably heard a lot of people. We have a number of calls. We're still responding to our list. It takes quite a while to do cleanup. One thing we do find is that we actually, once we clear everything that we have received calls for, we actually drive all of our snow plowing routes to clear debris route by route. We'll send a chipping crew out just to see anything that they see, look for anything they see along the side of the road in the right of way and pick that up. And what we'll find is, after we sometimes go down streets and clean it, people tend to carry the brush out to the edge of the right of way, which is, we'll still clean that up. We try to discourage people from doing that. We encourage people to utilize our compost and our compost site on Walden Street, and encourage them to bring their brush they can bring as much brush as their truck can carry or vehicle can carry down there either Wednesday evenings from 3 to 7 or Saturdays from 9 to 3. So that, we're still running that facility. I'm sure we'll see an uptick in volume and vehicle visits this coming Saturday as well. So.
Okay. Excellent. Great, Aaron. Any questions for Aaron on the highway grounds activities? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. John Rogers, the newly, I wouldn't say appointed, hired water sewer superintendent, is present. And John, do you want to kind of walk us through some of the highlights on water sewer, please?
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'll just try and run through this quickly, get toward the end. And obviously, the best part of the report, and there's lots of details in the report itself. We'll just highlight a couple of things here to talk about. One of them is the first of those is water quality around PFAS, which is per polyfluoroalkyl substances. So get used to lots of chemical names. This is a new issue for water providers. It's a family of chemicals, not just one. There's a lot of them out there. Been used since the 50s to manufacture lots of things: stain resistant, water resistant, non-stick products like pans, pots and pans, and they're widely used in a whole slew of things that we buy every day. They're also certain types of them are contained in firefighting foam. So if you've not already, begun to get familiar with PFAS, you might want to start, Googling around a little bit to get an idea, and, start being able to entertain your friends by saying things like perfluorooctane sulfonic acid. Just drop it into a conversation. That is one of the 6 substances that the Massachusetts DEP recently issued a new regulation effective October 2nd of this year, establishing a drinking water standard for a maximum contaminant level, an MCL, for the sum of 6 of those kinds of fancy chemicals, just long-worded, multisyllabic chemicals. So they've determined that MCL is 20 parts per trillion for the sum of 6 of the types of PFAS, and I assume those are because they're the most ubiquitous. Part of the concern around PFAS is that though Concord was part of a sampling back in 2014, I think, as part of the US EPA work, no PFAS were found in the Concord water system. But PFAS was found in a lot of other places across the country. And research is still ongoing, has been performed, is being performed to determine the health effects, the treatment methods, and alternative materials to PFAS. But in any case, we're going to have to comply with the DEP regulations. For communities of Concord size, that means we have to start doing testing, which is paid for. The actual testing itself is paid for by the state, and we start that in April for our community. So, stay tuned, and if you're interested, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of discussion. Just to go back, though, the MCL is 20 parts per trillion. I've heard it described that 1 part per trillion is a single grain of sand in a swimming pool. So, so, we're really talking tiny, tiny quantities. It's actually just above the detection limit of testing that exists today. Or the issue for DEP is how are they going to get labs up to speed to do all the testing that they're now requiring. So anyway, just to so that you're all aware, that's coming down the road. We don't expect it to affect Concord, certainly in the short term, but that's why we do the testing, to find out if these chemicals, which are a bit ubiquitous, and they last a really long time, and they're very difficult and very costly to remove if they're in water down below the treatment or the limits that Massachusetts has set. So, anyway, I'll leave that at that, and you probably will hear more about this as we get into that testing back next year. So, certainly, if you have questions, you can pass them along, and we can get you some more specific answers. The other thing I wanted to highlight. And by the way, so there's firefighter foam in this slide. One of the areas that one of the places that PFAS show up is in microwave popcorn, in the packaging for them, for whatever reason, probably for the non-stick capability it has that exists there. The other chemistry I wanted to talk about was bromate, which is a byproduct of our UV disinfection of the NAGOG pond water. And as with last fall, where we exceeded the limits just barely by a decimal point, we did again this fall. We've been working on trying to reduce that. It is an effect of doing a good job of UV disinfection. That's a very good thing. Bromate's not a very good thing, but it's not a very bad thing either. So we're working on coming up with solutions that address that, in part tied to the proposed treatment plant out at Meadow. But anyway, you'll be hearing more of that. There will be a notice that will go out. It's required that we notify folks in the system. And those are being printed as we speak. Got approval from DEP to issue that. So I would make you aware of that item as well. And the next slide, Alan, if you could move on to, just to let you know, we are doing a lot of water main replacement work this summer. I think it was mentioned in the previous director's report. That work is ongoing. We're working over in Peter Spring neighborhood and just started over on Potter Street. So that work continues, and other repairs. We were out this morning with the water main break that occurred up on Monument Street, about 1579 Monument Street. So addressing that, and it was a large pipe sitting in rock ledge. So that's part of the conditions that we dealt with a long time to get to that. But you know, it's part of the water system improvements, not only replacing old and worrisome water mains, but also putting in place new hydrants. Actually, this picture is over at the Peter Spring neighborhood, where the contractor's doing a fabulous job, in part because of what you see in front of you, which is sand. The area is underlain by sand, and it's fast going for them. They've been doing a great job. They've been very good through the neighborhood, and so we're very pleased with that work. Hope they can continue to work in the sand. So the final item is that I'd just like to highlight is the Nagog Pond intake. And so I think Alan we went through this last month when I was just fresh on the job. But we publicly bid the first part of the work out at Nagog Pond, and that was we publicly bid and selected the lowest qualified contractor, lowest bid of qualified contractors for the pipe that takes the water from the pond and into the ozone facility, as Alan is sort of highlighting there, that blue line shown on this. Due to the bids being high, reflective of uncertainties for the work in the cove section of the pipeline. You see that red line? Yeah, that section that Alan is circling there is the cove section of the pipeline. It's not quite as bad condition as the section to the left of that red line. But it also is in an area that's much more environmentally sensitive. So for those two reasons, we determined to break the project into two phases. So phase one is the section to the left, which includes the pipeline, obviously, outside the cove area, and the intake structure itself sits out there, where it's got it highlighted, and investigation of the pipeline to the extent that we can, because we'll have access to the end of that pipe to look at what we think is going to be a phase two pipeline work, should it even be necessary. And there may be other methods that we can use there rather than a full removal and replacement. So we'll have an opportunity to look at both those things. So just where we are with the project, the contractor has made various required submittals, including their means and methods for doing that work. They looked at three alternatives. We believe the alternative they propose is least disruptive, least damaging to the environment relative to the Wetlands Protection Act and the Acton Wetlands Bylaw. And we're now looking at the sort of quantifying that in a more rigorous way with the contractor, looking at ways to further reduce what we think is the minimum impacts to that, and working to clarify, get dialogue with the contractor, continue dialogue with the Acton Conservation Commission, which we began a couple weeks ago, and to clarify and potentially refine the construction approach for the phase 1 work, and presumably get Acton Conservation Commission's approval and begin that work this fall, as we had hoped. And so that is where we are with regards to the NAGOC system. So with that, I'm here.
Thanks. Thank you, John. So that's basically an overview of what's keeping us busy, what's important. And obviously the director's report, you'll find, more details and other, initiatives we're involved with, but just want to make sure the commission was aware of these activities, and if you have any questions, we can entertain them. But otherwise, I think that's the update.
Thanks, Alan. Are there any questions or comments for Alan or any of the leaders? Okay, in that case, are there any commissioners' comments? Updates, okay. Are there citizen comments? At this time, if you could raise your hand or let us know if there's any comments you'd like to make.
Don't see any.
No comments.
Yeah.
Okay, that being the case, is there a motion for adjournment?
I make a motion to adjourn. Andrew Boardman.
Is there a second?
Second by Jeff Fasser.
Thank you, sir. Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor? James Terry, yes. Andrew Boardman,
Yes.
Jeff Fasser.
Yes.
And Casey Winslow had to leave our meeting because she had another appointment shortly after 5 o'clock. So that's all the commissioners that are here. So I declare that we have adjourned the meeting of October 14th. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.